Hey there and welcome back. For a while I've been thinking about all the mistakes I see players around me make, and to be honest, I do some too from time to time. As much as I would like to be perfect, that's not really the case. When popularity failed Battlefield 2042, the player base dropped down to only the weirdos, like me, and the need for a video like this wasn't really there. I know I did a beginner's guide already a few weeks after release, but this isn't going to be anything like that. I mean, that video is still worth watching, but this video will focus more on the errors I see players make today, and since more players have joined again as of Season 1, and probably even more are joining now when Season 2 is coming up, well, it is as good of a time as any to get better, isn't it? I will point out the problems that I see, and I will try to motivate why you should do different in order to win more. That's right, I don't really care about your personal KD or if you get more points by doing some things in a weird way. This video is all about winning. Before we get started, if you like this video, consider supporting the channel by giving a thumbs up and maybe even subscribe. That will also make sure you don't miss future videos. There are many ways to spot players in Battlefield 2042, and unlike some previous titles, you're not alerted by many of these. At first glance, that might seem odd, but having constant pings in your ear telling you that you are spotted becomes quite annoying, which we now know because of the Pike flood in recent weeks. You can't really do anything to prevent Pike except kill her when she turns up, but you can actually prevent the enemy team from seeing more often than you think. If you stay alert, you might sometimes see, for instance, the Casper drone. They spot everyone in front within a certain view angle and distance. And since a maximum of 2 hits will kill it, you should always do that. If you yourself are playing boring Casper and flying around with your toy, you can use that little taser and destroy bad Casper's toy. This is certainly valuable for your team, and possibly also for you. It gives intel ribbons and XP, and it's just generally a good habit. Another easy spotting device that you can and always should remove is the Pokeball, the ball that points out everyone in this vicinity. Much like nades, you can use the E or whatever your action key is to throw it somewhere else. Not only did you remove the spotting device from you and your team, now you are benefiting from it. Up for the second error, and this applies especially in close quarters like in the tunnels of exposure. Usually I see some play Irish, and as with all specialists, they like using its abilities. Great, you think? Wrong you are. The problem is that too many use the Irish wall. It's a foldable piece of wall that is made to protect the skinny dwarf from any enemies shooting perpendicular to the wall. To make it easier for the enemy, the wall has a glass section so anyone can see what you do and just wait to pop your head clean off. The Irish wall is really weak on its own. As a temporary protection for a revive, it works alright. And yes, you can pick it up, so you don't have to wait for a cooldown. But otherwise, you should pretty much always use the actual corners and covers and then combine it with the Irish box. Especially as of the latest patch, where the Irish box destroys just about anything that explodes. It's really modern thinking. While a wall can stop bullets and explosives, the box shoots explosives before they even reach the target, thus creating a virtual sphere of safety. There are many things that are controllable in Battlefield 2042, and since a while back they all provide XP for activating or taking over control from the enemy. You can see the panel on a wall, a post, or well, pretty much wherever. It can be posts that prevent enemy vehicles from passing, doors that prevent enemies from entering the room, or sensors that alert you if enemies are passing. I probably forgot something, but the fact is that there are many things to take control of. You should know that there are ways around or even through these, but the essence is that they make a position more defensible by either alerting or slowing enemies down. Knowing where the enemy is of course the most important aspect of any military strategy. Being able to outmaneuver them is the next key to fabric a win. Sun Tzu knew this more than 2,500 years ago, and it still stays true today. Maybe you were reading at Twitter or Reddit that there is no destruction in Battlefield 2042. Don't listen, or rather close your eyes. There isn't as much or as beautiful destruction as in some other titles, I'll admit that. But sure, there is destruction in Battlefield 2042 and you need to use it. Why walk through a door into several guns where you can just blow a hole in the wall and kill the enemy at the same time? Covers, walls, doors, trees, fences, well, you name it, it can all be destroyed. By the way, you know you can melee fences, right? Anyway, bring C5, recoilers, whatever you have to do just to blow the stuff you need to get a nice flank. Just do it. Proning is an ability that has been present in most Battlefield games. It's the deadly sin that has been constantly committed ever since 1942. As much as some want the Battlefield franchise to be a milsim, it isn't. This means that proning, or lying on the ground in pleb language, isn't something that you normally should be doing. Listen to me. The only time, and I mean it, the only time you should be proning in a Battlefield game is when you are behind cover and you are either gaining health or reloading your weapon. Proning makes you very stationary and very susceptible for swift death. In Battlefield 2042, this becomes even more true than in previous titles, since most covers only protect you from 1, 2 or sometimes 3 angles. Being a game where verticality plays a large part, this means that you usually have your back or bottom towards an enemy. Even if you feel fully protected, nades and explosives have your name written all over them. The worst thing you can do is dolphin dive into the ground in front of an enemy, hoping to kill the enemy first. Battlefield 2042 has a pretty rough penalty of that movement, and 1 or 2 bullets to your head is usually all that it takes for a kill. While you can use destruction to your advantage, I often see people that think it's fun to break all the glass they see just for fun, or because they think it might stop a bullet. Sure, if you can benefit from the breaking glass, you should of course do so, but there are 2 major aspects that you should be aware of. Flying Sundancers are a constant threat, for instance on the platform of exposure. They fly from all directions and land in the middle of the enemies and kill a handful with a K-30. Ring a bell? Here is the deal. A Sandance can't fly through a window that isn't broken. It stops like a fly on the windshield on your car, so leaving all glass intact is an easy way to get rid of the Sundancers, or to force them to reveal themselves by shooting glass before they enter. The other aspect is tightly coupled to the alert, as I just said. First of all, breaking the glass makes a noise. It can reveal an enemy before he or she fires on you, giving you enough time to dodge bullets and return fire. Secondly, if the enemy has his head stuck up his ass and fires to break the glass, he will pop up like Rudolph on Christmas Eve. Ever since the dawn of Battlefield, some have used transport as one route transport. Jump in, go wherever you need and just ditch it. This works fine in the early games since transports usually are only transports. Only squads could spawn on you, well, not at first but later. And usually it would break from falling if a heli. In Battlefield 2042, however, the role of transport has changed. Actual transports like the MAV and the Condor or the Super Hind are potent battle stations that also acts as robust mobile spawn beacons for your entire team. Given that they have substantial firepower when manned, and that anyone in your entire team can spawn at any given time, as long as some don't grow attached in there, it's the most powerful vehicle in the game. Add that the Super Hind and the Condor are extremely mobile, and well, it should go without saying. Using a MAV, a Super Hind or a Condor for quick movement and then ditching it is really bad for your team. You might personally end up where you want and possibly your squad can do some damage, but for the entire team and the entire match, it really sucks. Also, since helicopters don't take that much damage from falling, any of the said vehicles might be captured and used by the enemy, which really should ensure a loss for your team. If it is a disposable vehicle, there are plenty of electric cars placed around the map, or you can use the Latvi. Even a Latvi can be valuable, but normally your team has several and they can't take that much punishment, meaning that your team can usually repair your if you should gift it to the enemy. It should go without saying, but another scenario, especially for the Condor, are the clowns that think it's cool or even remotely usable to use it for kamikaze. If somewhat successful, it usually ends up with 5 teammates giving up their lives to take down a stealth or attack heli. Apart from screwing your teammates though, a fully armed Condor can easily bring any heli down if given height advantage. Same of course also goes for Super Hinds, but since it requires a little bit more skill as a pilot to kamikaze a Super Hind, that isn't as common. But I got the enemy heli. No, you're an absolute clown. Sit down and shut up. Heavy vehicles such as tanks and AAs are really exposed in Battlefield 2042. They're not as mobile as most other vehicles, and although they can take some more punishment, they really feel fragile when they get attention from the enemy. With that said, you can't be too much of a chicken with your tank or AA, or you won't do any good. Sitting at your main looking at all the rocks and buildings preventing your line of sight won't be useful for your team. On the other hand, storming onto point and going up in flames within a few seconds is normally not that useful either. Regardless if you're a very passive or very aggressive tanker, there is another specific thing that you can do that really can screw your team. There is this golden rule in Battlefield: if you drive a vehicle, you die with your vehicle. This doesn't necessarily have to be true if you capture the vehicle, but if the vehicle belongs to your team and it's a valuable vehicle, then you should really die with it. The only vehicle that you can spawn that should be considered less valuable is the Latvi and the hovercraft. Usually, your team gets many and they can't take that much punishment. Use as you like and toss them away, that's fine. However, if you see that your tank is taking damage and you abandon it to not die because that will ruin your KD, then you are just plain ignorant or dumb. There is always a chance or risk that an empty tank will change hands. On many 2042 maps, the number of heavy vehicles are limited to just a few, so gifting one is really not a good idea. You would be amazed by how many times I see players return to the exact spot they just left as the wings of death brought them to their afterlife. So let's put yourself in the killer's shoes for a moment. If you have your wits about you, you might think, let's double check this position again to make sure no one pops up. And sure they do, way too often. Not only do I, as the killer, have a great advantage in that I already have a high probability of predicting your movement, I also know the drop and have somewhat feeling for the travel time of the bullets since last time. If I'm moving, I can make small adjustments compensating for that. Meanwhile, the favorite position guy is looking at a wide range of distances, angles and movements. Chances are that he or she needs at least one more bullet to compensate for their aim, if we are talking about snipers. If you are unlucky, maybe someone has even made a trap for you or an ambush. The problem with the favorite position isn't only the return after being killed, it's also that you easily become very static. Sometimes it can give a reward, but eventually you are likely to get close encounter with lead. In Battlefield 2042 you can move a little while reviving, and as soon as the revive is started you no longer need to look at your patient. This might not sound so cool, but it's actually really powerful as you can both gain intel and make yourself harder to hit at the same time as reviving. Just be aware that the game can be somewhat inconsistent when reviving, especially if you try to revive my friend plus Squid. I hope at least some of these advice helped you, and why don't you write a comment if you think I missed something. Cheers!